Hey guys, welcome back to our study of the Cold War and focusing again on Kennedy and his dealing with Cold War issues. Again, in this section, we're going to be teetering back and forth between Eisenhower and Kennedy in our study of the famous incident known as the Bay of Pigs. March 1960, President Eisenhower gives the CIA, remember the CIA and their training of militants in Guatemala and the spying on Russia and the topple of the Iranian Prime Minister. Well, once again, the CIA's at it, and Eisenhower gives them permission to train Cuban exiles for a re-entry into Cuba to try to take out Castro. Again, we don't like the idea that Castro is welcoming communist aid being so close to the United States. So, policy of containment and the Eisenhower doctrine to protect our interests is being put into effect. CIAs and the exiles hoped that this would trigger a revolt on the island, and they would be joined by the people living in Cuba, which would be a massive uprising against Castro, which he would not be able to sustain. Eisenhower leaves office. Second term is over. Kennedy takes over as President of the United States, winning by just a small margin, and it's only 9 days into his presidency when he learns of the CIA training of these exiles. He has doubts about the situation, but regardless, obviously, he approves it, and it continues on as planned. April 1961, between 1,300 and 1,500 Cuban exiles, supposedly supported by U.S. military, lands on the island on the southern coast of Cuba called the Bahia de Cochinos, translated into English as the Bay of Pigs. Nothing goes as planned. Air support didn't do what it was supposed to do. Military support that was supposed to land on shore first and distract Castro's forces never landed. When the exiles finally landed, they were facing up to 2,500 Cuban troops along with their Soviet-style weaponry. And essentially it's a slaughterhouse, and the exiles are captured or killed. And the whole incident just blows up in Kennedy's face. I have a video here you can see embedded into the presentation. I'm not going to play it just for the sake of time. It's only 6.5 minutes. I've put it on Blackboard. However, I would like you to watch it. It's a very interesting look at the Bay of Pigs from the perspective of two veterans who fought with the exiled forces, who were either had their freedom, they escaped with their freedom, or they were eventually freed through negotiations made by Kennedy. But regardless, it's interesting as to what they had to say about the U.S. support of this movement. Again, this whole incident leaves Kennedy at the beginning of his presidency extremely embarrassed, as you can see here from this political cartoon. This whole thing blew up in his face. It wasn't even his plan, but as President of the United States, he has to accept responsibility for it. Publicly, he does accept blame. Privately, he is all over the CIA and the Pentagon as to how this thing blew up. Again, you'll notice a different opinion in that YouTube video if you watch it. The exiles that are captured their release is negotiated. Kennedy promises to give $53 million in food and supplies to the people of Cuba, basically to Castro and his government. Shortly after that, once they're released, Kennedy makes a huge public announcement. He gives a speech at the Orange Bowl, and he's holding up the flag of the exiles, and he claims that during his presidency, we will see a free Havana, and of course that never happens. And it's 2014, and we're just now seeing the first time the embargo being lifted between the United States and Cuba. A pretty historic moment for us today to be living in this time. For the first time, President Obama has lifted that embargo that's been in place since the 1960s. All right, folks, talk to you later.